Good day, amazing people of Nigeria. Welcome to today's episode of Know Your Rights. I am still Ruth, connecting with you here in Urbanpop Radio. So, in today's section of Know Your Rights, we'll be discussing about tenancy rights and eviction. A statement by Lord Action, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's to say that if a landlord is allowed to have too much power, as a tenant, you might wake up and see your properties outside. And if a tenant is allowed to have too much power, maybe a tenant might decide to stay in a property for 5 months without paying. So, for this reason, there are laws and regulating tenancy rights and landlord rights in order to create a balance between the landlord and tenants agreement. The laws of Lagos State 2011 is actually the most detailed of all the tenancy laws of different states, and it clearly spells out the right of a landlord and that of a tenant. So it's important that you as a landlord that you know your rights and know when to stop and when to seek redress in case of infringement. And also, as a tenant, it's important you know your rights and know when your right is being infringed upon by a landlord just by the mere fact that you're occupying his or her property. Firstly, we'll be talking about the rights of a landlord. As a landlord, you have the right to receive rent. Yes, you have the right to receive rent of a property that you've leased out to a tenant, and that right cannot be compromised. Also, as a landlord, you have a right to evict a tenant from your property, but this must be done reasonably and legally. And to evict a tenant from your property, it must the tenant must have reached the tenancy agreement upon which two of you agreed on, or must have caused a significant damage to the property, or must have subletted the building to another tenant without your permission. And to do this, you still have to follow due process of serving the person a quit notice. And for a monthly tenant, the period of notice that is required is a month, and for a yearly tenant, it's a and for a yearly tenant, it's a period of 6 months, and for a daily tenant, it's just a day notice, like you give the person a day notice before evicting the tenant from the property. Also, as a landlord, when a tenant causes significant damage to your property, you are entitled to compensation, or you can deduct from the security fee the tenant paid before entering the property. As a landlord, you have the right to inspect the property, but this must be done wisely in order not to a kind of interfere with the tenant's rights. Now, let's discuss the rights of a tenant. As a tenant, you are entitled to um, notice before eviction. So, a landlord shouldn't evict you without notice. I've heard of situations where tenants are served quit notice and they're expected to leave the property the next day, and these are yearly tenants. So, as a tenant, you should know that you are entitled to due notice, and it depends on if you're a monthly tenant, if you're a yearly tenant, or if you're a daily tenant. If you're a daily tenant, you are expected you are expected to be given a day notice. As a yearly tenant, you are expected to be given 6 months notice before eviction. As a quarterly tenant, you are expected to be given 3 months notice without eviction, provided by section 13 of Lagos State Tenancy Laws 2011. So if any landlord asks you to leave a property and you're a yearly tenant and the person is demanding that you leave a property within a space of 2 days, it's actually against your rights and you can seek redress in a law court. As a tenant as well, you are entitled to be compensated for a repair you carried out in the building you are occupying. But know before you um, the law will cover you on this ground, you must have obtained the consent of the landlord before carrying out the repairs. Don't carry a major repair in a building you are occupying without the consent of the landlord and expect the landlord to compensate you at the end of the day. As a tenant, also, you are entitled to enjoy the property you paid for without being without interference. So the right of a landlord to inspect the property does not a kind of cancel this right of a tenant to enjoy the property. If a landlord wants to inspect a property, the landlord should follow due process in doing that and shouldn't infringe upon the right of a tenant to enjoy the property. As a tenant, you are entitled to um, rights to be given a receipt for any payments you made while occupying the building, be it rent payments or any fee you paid while occupying the building. Thank you so much for joining us in our today's section of Know Your Rights. Don't forget, to know your right is your weapon of defense. To know your right is to know when to seek redress. If you don't know your rights will be infringed upon without you knowing in the first place. And don't forget to follow us, Urbanpop Radio NG, on all social media handles, on X, on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok.